Hi and welcome to our video discussing SQL triggers and SQL as a programming language. This project was completed by Kyle, Eunice, Eleanor, Ethan and me, David. To begin with, we'll be discussing SQL triggers. This particular slide is based off the website tutorialspoint.com and explains exactly what operations can lead to a trigger. A trigger in SQL is a stored procedure which is automatically run when some predefined event occurs. So in other words, it is a set of actions that are run automatically when a specified change operation is performed on a specified table. Now what is a specified change operation? Well, it can be any one of the following. A database manipulation or DML statement such as delete, insert or update. A database definition or DDL statement such as create, alter or drop. Or a database operation like server error, log on, log off, startup or shutdown. Moving on to why we should use triggers, well, there are many benefits to using them. These came from the website w3resource.com. Triggers are beneficial for enforcing business rules and referential integrity, validating input data, generating a unique value for a newly inserted row in a different file, writing to other files, querying from other files, accessing system functions, replicating data to different files, imposing security authorizations, preventing invalid transactions, faster application development, and easier maintenance. So how do we actually create a trigger in SQL? Information from the website mysqltutorial.com, which this slide is based on, shows us exactly how to create a trigger using the create trigger statement. If we follow the syntax on the right, we first need to type create or replace trigger, followed by its name. This line creates or replaces an existing trigger with whatever name we've given it. Then we can specify when the trigger will be executed, using before or after a certain event. We can also use the instead of clause to create a trigger on a view. After this, we specify the database manipulation statement using insert, update, or delete. We can then specify the name of the table this particular trigger is associated with using on, followed by the table name, and we can also specify for what rows the trigger will affect. Otherwise, the trigger will just execute once when the SQL statement is executed. This is what's known as a table level trigger. If we are using row level triggers, then we can also include a conditional clause using when, followed by a condition for when the trigger should fire. However, there are some limitations to SQL triggers. The information for this slide was also taken from mysqltutorial.com and details the limitations. So SQL triggers can do all the features defined in the standard SQL, but can't use show, load data, load table, backup database, restore, flush, and return statements. SQL triggers also can't use statements that commit or roll back implicitly, such as commit, rollback, start transaction, lock or unlock tables, alter, create, drop, or rename. They also can't use prepared statements like prepare and execute, or use dynamic SQL statements. Now on to the second part of this video, SQL as a programming language. In the boxes on the top left and top right, we can see the differences between SQL and PL SQL. SQL is used to create, modify, and delete database objects like tables, and is also used to insert, update, delete, or query data in these objects. PL SQL, on the other hand, is a procedural programming language with most features of other programming languages. It uses SQL commands to manipulate data and procedural and flow statements to process its data. Some of the features of PL SQL include extensive error checking, development of web applications and server pages, numerous data types, a variety of programming structures, and support for structured programming through functions and procedures. It also supports object-oriented programming. The information for this came from tutorialspoint.com and dummies.com. Moving on now to the syntax of PL SQL. PL SQL is a block-structured language, which means it is divided and written in logical blocks of code. A typical example of a program in PL SQL is outlined on the left and comes from tutorialspoint.com. Each block consists of three subparts. The declaration section starts with the keyword declare and defines all variables, cursors, and subprograms and is optional. The next section is the executable commands section and is enclosed between the keywords begin and end. This section contains executable PL SQL statements of the program, and at least one is needed. The next section is also optional and begins with the keyword exception. This is where error handling happens. An example of this in action can be seen here, which comes from geeksforgeeks.org. In PL SQL, there are two ways to declare variables. You can either declare the name and type of a variable and also assign a value to it all in one line, like in the top example, or you can first declare the name and type of the variable and later on assign a value to it, like in the example just below it. In the examples, the names are outlined in red, the data types are outlined in blue, and the values that are assigned to them are outlined in green. These examples came from guru99.com and tutorialspoint.com. Now on to functions and procedures in PL SQL, which are subprograms. Here's the syntax for a procedure, which is mainly used to perform an action. Notice how it has no return statement. And then here is a syntax for a function, which computes and returns a value. The parameters surrounded in green here are in, out, and in-out. The in parameter lets you pass a value to the subprogram. It is a read-only parameter, cannot be assigned a value in the subprogram, and is passed by reference. The out parameter returns a value to the calling program. It acts like a variable in the sense that you can change its value and reference the value. The actual parameter must be a variable and is passed by value. An in-out parameter passes an initial value to a subprogram and returns an updated value to the calling program. It must be a variable and is passed by value. The information here comes from geeksforgeeks.org and tutorialspoint.com. To finish here, let's go through an example of a function line by line which comes from geeksforgeeks.org. Firstly, some integers are declared in the declare segment. Then the function is defined as function, reverse it, and takes in x as an integer and returns an integer, z. The actual code of the function then follows under begin, where n is given the value of x, and while n is greater than 0, r becomes n modulo 10, rev becomes itself multiplied by 10 plus r, then n becomes whatever the truncated value of n divided by 10 is. This ends the loop. Z then gets the value of rev and z is returned. Then an example is used with a being passed through the function to be reversed. And this reverse number is then displayed. This concludes our video. Thanks very much for listening.